Hello, everyone. My name is Dave Harden. I'll be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshop, Social Security Filing Strategies. I just need to do a quick sound check. If you're on, if you could give me a hand, I would very much appreciate it. And then we can start trivia. Just something fun to keep us for the few minutes we have until the top of the hour. All right. So there's a bunch of different channels on tonight: Facebook, X, YouTube, Instagram. Let's just focus in on a couple of the bigger ones. Facebook, certainly Facebook and YouTube fall into that category. If you're in one of those, if you could just give me a quick sound check, let me know if you can hear me. So we just have a few people on so far, even though trivia is starting any second. If you're one of them, please, I'm talking to you. If you could just use the chat function and give me a thumbs up or a sounds good. I'm in Pennsylvania this evening, so I'd love to hear what state you're in as well. Excuse me, we usually get people from all over. But just give me a quick sound check if you're on Facebook or YouTube. Let me know that you can hear me, and we will get started. If you're on, again, my name's Dave Harden. Just looking for some help with a quick sound check. I guess there's the possibility that you can't hear me. I hope not. Anybody online right now? There we go. Looks like Catalina. Thank you. And another one that's to YouTube, then a Facebook. Thanks, Jana. Thanks, Catalina. And you're in Texas. Awesome. That's a big state, so that could be a lot of different places, Catalina. But thanks for the feedback. All right, sounds great. Thanks so much for your quick feedback. Let me get to the trivia, and we'll get started. So I'll ask our team to pull that up, and we will substitute the screen for the trivia screen. This is pretty easy. Thanks, Kathy. Kathy's from Ohio, and you hear me fine. Thanks, I appreciate it. Excuse me, I got a little frog tonight. Hopefully I can get rid of that. Houston, thanks. All right, so I'm going to ask some questions. They're multiple choice, easy answers. If you don't know, it shouldn't keep you from participating. Take a guess. You just push in A, B, C, or in some of them D. I don't think we have any E's. And then we'll get through as many of these we can before the top of the hour. So let's do the first question. Where are the first three numbers of your Social Security number derived from? So everybody has a 9-digit Social Security number, 3 numbers and 2 numbers and 4. Those first 3 numbers, they come from something, or do they? So here's the first answer. A, they represent the zip code of your birth city. B, the zip code of the issuing Social Security office. C, they're random. Or D, they represent the state where you were born. So just throw in your answers, A, B, C, or D, and we'll get rolling. I see a D. I see another D. D is a popular answer today. Another D. Interesting. All right. Any takers on anything else? Or are we all in consensus it's D tonight? I'll give you 10 more seconds to throw in your answer. If you're just joining us, we're just doing some fun trivia before we get started right at the top of the hour. Feel free to participate. There's a C. Couple C's. Interesting. More D's. All right. Let's take a look at the answer, okay? More D's. The answer is B. It actually represents the zip code of the office, the local Social Security office where you went or you contacted to get your Social Security number. For most of you, if you're 60 or plus, I'm assuming most of you are at least late 50s, you went to an office. I certainly did when I had to get my Social Security number. They didn't give it to us. My kids all got them when I filed tax returns, because eventually they started, sometime in the 80s, they started asking for a Social Security number of your child. And nowadays you get them, I think, almost at birth. So I got mine when I was 14 applying for a job. I needed it to be able to work. So interesting. All right. Well, I have more than 40,000 people claimed 078051120. Don't be writing that down right now. 078051120 as their own Social Security number. Now, Social Security works this way: one number, one. They've never actually replaced a number. Nobody's ever gotten a number that somebody else has used yet. Eventually, I'm assuming that will happen. But so far, everybody has their own. But 40,000 people claim this. Is it A, the number was stolen and sold over 40,000 times? Obviously, identity theft. B, Social Security machine got stuck and just kept repeating that number as it issued 40,000 different people the same number. Or C, it was a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in the wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands and thousands and thousands of people. What do you think? A, B, or C? A, B, or C? I see some C's. There's no D's on this, so it's A, B, or C. There's a B. Interesting. Another C. If you've just joined us, feel free to participate. This is just fun trivia. We'll go right until the top of the hour, and then we'll switch and we'll start the workshop. Another C. C seems like the most popular answer. There's an A. Thank you, Pamela. There's another A. All right. Let's take a peek. That's another A. Barbara, thanks. The answer is C. Interesting. It was a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands of people. This is a true story. This happened in the 60s. It was, they were prepping a wallet. The marketing manager wanted to put stuff in it as he was sending it out to be manufactured and printed. They used a Social Security card from one of his assistants who let him use it, thinking it would be temporary. Boy, did they have something in for a surprise. All right. Next question. Under what circumstances can you get a new Social Security number, not card, a new number issued to you? A, religious or cultural issues with certain numbers. B, hello, Nancy. B, you're experiencing ongoing issues after being a victim of identity theft. C, your number enables people to harass or endanger your life. Or D, all of the above. A, B, C, or D. A is religious or cultural issues with certain numbers. B, you're experiencing ongoing issues of identity theft. C, people are harassing or endangering your life and they have your Social Security number. Or D, all of the above. I see some B's, some D's. Interesting. All right. This is your chance to get an answer in before we get started here. Another B, another D. It's pretty spread out here. I don't see anybody saying A, but B, C, and D are getting a workout. Excuse me. All right. Thanks for your answers. Let's pull it up. There's a C. Last one. All right. It's D. Any one of those is good enough to get you a new number. Doesn't matter which one, they all qualify you. All right. I think this might be close to our last one here. What year was the first Social Security benefit paid? So I'll give you a little background. President Roosevelt, Franklin D. Roosevelt, signed the Social Security bill into law in 1935. So when did the first benefit get paid? Was it A, 1936 for $28.17, B, 1937 for $19.67, or C, 1940 for $22.54? A, B, or C? 1936, 1937, 1940. Again, Social Security bill signed into law in 1935. When was the first benefit paid? Throw in your answers. We're getting close to the top of the hour, so we need to get going. Last chance to get your answer in. A, B, or C. Come on, just take a guess if you don't know. I see some B's. More B's. More B's. Interesting. All right. Well, the consensus on this is definitely B. In fact, oh, there's a C. There's an A. The more B's. All right. Good deal. Let's take a look at the answer. It's C, 1940. So why would it take 5 years before somebody got money out of Social Security? It's really simple. Social Security is self-funded. So it collects the money. We couldn't start collecting till actually January 1st of 1936. And then they had to collect enough money to sustainably pay out benefits without having to stop because they ran out. So they had to build up a little bit of a cushion. That's why it took till 1940, almost 5 years from when the bill was signed. All right. I'm going to ask our tech team, it's top of the hour, to pull up the actual workshop, and we will get started here. Okay. Thank you. Let me start with a little bit of housekeeping. First off, thanks for joining us. I'm asked often, how long is this going to take, Dave? We are going to be here about an hour and 20 minutes. That's how long the workshop lasts. At the end of it, I always do a Q&A. Now, you don't have to stay for that, but most people do. In fact, I was doing a workshop recently, and I don't think there were 2 people that dropped out. They lasted through the entire Q&A. Even it was just sticking around to hear everybody else's questions. But here's what would help me, and if you could just pay attention to this for 1 second. Even now, you have the ability to use the chat function just like we did for trivia. If you have a question that you know you're going to ask, type it in, submit it. You don't have to wait till the end of the workshop. If you do that, we will be able to gather those up. Our tech team will get them ready, and we will be able to present those right at the end of the workshop. So there's no, hey, type in your answer, and it takes 5 minutes before somebody actually gets one that I can answer. So if you do that now or any time through the workshop, you're welcome to do it. Certainly, we'll give you some time at the end to type in questions as well. So don't be afraid of that. We appreciate it. All right, let me get started here. Let's introduce myself. My name is Dave Harden. I am a registered financial consultant, RFC. That's a designation from the IA, the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. It is a retirement planning and investment management designation. It's about retirement planning primarily. I also carry the NSSA certification. That is the only college accredited designation for Social Security and taxes in the country. I do that because any kind of planning practice has to understand Social Security and taxes. I'm a little shocked. There are only less than 2,000 people across the country that have the designation. It's the only one that's college accredited. And I'm stunned by that, honestly. I'm continually floored by it. I'm not saying it's easy to get. It took quite a bit of study and a lot of practice to get good at this. But I don't know how you do planning for retirement without it. And there are about 1 million people in our country who call themselves investment management planners, retirement planners. I've heard some crazy answers out of them in terms of what to do with Social Security. And I just had a client recently that said their current advisor said, "Oh, don't worry about it. You can file anytime you want." Boy, were they wrong. It made a huge difference for them to file correctly. I'm also the author of the Social Security Workbook that you've been promising. We're going to give you the information on how to receive that tonight. Also, because I own a registered investment advisory firm, I need to disclose that to you. It's called City Center Advisors, LLC. We have a couple offices around the country. I guess we have clients in about 43 different states, over 1,200 client accounts nationwide. We've been a very, very successful firm. I own it with my son, who I'm incredibly proud of, but we've done very, very well. I need to disclose this to you, but I need to put you a little bit at ease. This is not what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm not here to give you a pitch on where you need to make an investment or what stock to buy. That's not what we're here. I do need to disclose that I am a fiduciary advisor. So my license, I have a Series 65, requires me to act as a fiduciary in every capacity that I do when I'm dealing with clients or prospective clients. I will do that this evening as well, but I need to disclose that to you so you know ahead of time. That being said, we're going to talk about Social Security. And if it's okay with you, we'll just dig into that right now. All right. So, why is Social Security such a hot topic? Well, every day, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65 every single day. That's 70,000 a week, 300 or 280,000 a month, 300 or 3.64 million people last year turned 65. That's going to go on for the next 10 or 11 years. And it will continue past that, just not quite at 10,000 for probably another 2 decades before it drops considerably. It's a big deal. There are a whole lot of people interested in Social Security benefits because we're getting older as a generation, as a people, as a country. And it is a huge deal because we've paid into it a huge amount of money. But maybe more importantly, 65% of middle income Americans derive more than 50%, half of their retirement income from Social Security. It's a huge part of what we do these days. Now, I say that because when I first started in our industry, back in the late 70s, I'll tell you, I'm not young. Back in the late 70s, we used to call retirement, it was referred to as the three-legged stool. Your Social Security, your savings, and your pension. Well, pensions are very common these days. And these days, we refer to it as the two-legged stool for most people. See, since 1985, American corporations have eliminated more than 84,000 pensions. I don't mean 84,000 people. That would be bad, but not terrible because there's a lot more of us than that. I mean 84,000 corporations. Many of those corporations had more than 100,000 employees. One day they offered a pension. The next day they said, that's too expensive. We're going to stop doing that. And everybody's retirement changed. My stepfather had a pension from serving in the military for 28 years, and then had a second pension for the job that he got after he was out of the military, and then he had Social Security. That's not the case for most of us. Then maybe the scariest fact of all, 46.1% of Americans currently are passing away with less than enough money to fund their own funeral. I don't mean look, the 46.1% certainly includes people who have nothing or very, very little to begin with. But it also includes people that start retirement with hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe more. And when they started retirement, thought there's no way they're going to end up broke. But that's exactly what happened. And if that doesn't send a chill up your spine, it should. But the real question out of that isn't about, is it happening? Because it absolutely is. The question is, how is it happening? Because if you don't know how it's happening, how in the world do you avoid it? We're going to talk about that tonight. All right. So you insure your home, Of course you do. Nobody can, well, very few people can handle a catastrophic event like a fire of their house burning down. How about your car? If you live in most states, you don't have a choice. And what about your health? Well, if you're here and you're thinking about Social Security, I assure you, you are also thinking about Medicare. And what is Medicare other than a government sponsored health insurance program? Now, it's not a government program, it's a government sponsored one because you paid for it from their very first paycheck till your very last one. A huge amount of money over that period of time. And then do you insure your retirement? Well, that's exactly what Social Security is as well. Social Security is a government sponsored retirement income program. Now, it's more than that. It's a disability program. It's an insurance program. But that's what it is. It provides income to those people who paid into it over a specific period of time. It's an insurance program. And nothing wrong with that. Government sponsored means it's probably a little more stable than an insurance company. Some of you might argue with that, but we'll talk about that as well tonight. Maybe the most concerning thing I'm going to talk about this evening is the fact that when you're planning your Social Security, you have to think about longevity. How long am I going to live? Well, this is census data directly from the census. If you're a single male age 65 today, you have a 50% chance of living to 85. No, probably no surprise to most of you. You have a 25% chance of living to 92. 1 in 4 that you would live to 92. Now, this is for people that are already 65. If you're born today, you don't have that anywhere near that kind of chance to live to 92. But if you make it to 65, you do. If you're a single female today, you have a 50% at age 65, you have a 50% chance of living to 88 and a 25% chance of living to 94. And if you're a couple, two people who care about each other, two people who have each other's back, maybe that's a great analogy, because you might ask why. Well, let me tell you what the odds are here. If you're a couple, if you're the male in that couple, you have a 50% chance of living to 92. 1 in 2 chance of living to 92. If you're the female, 50% chance, 1 in 2 chance to live to 97. I said, you've got each other's back. I'll explain. My sister died 10 years ago. It'll be 11 years ago in June, but 10 years ago, and she died of skin cancer. They didn't catch it. They couldn't figure out what it was. It was a rare form of skin cancer. It was, first off, I didn't even know you could get skin cancer under your skin, but skin has two sides, and she got it on the underneath side. And they just didn't know. She lived in the Washington, D.C. area, which is where I grew up. And she ended up at NIH, who did a biopsy and figured out that they could try to treat it with a form of DNA and chemo and all sorts of things. But it just paused it. Eventually, it didn't stop it. And in 2015, she succumbed to it. And it was a sad day. But because of that, because my sister and I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area, and when summer came, the first day of summer, we did, I'm sure there are a lot of people on here tonight. I'm sure there are other people that did this. I went out and I got tanned. By that, I mean, I went out and I got burned. And I expected it. I went out and embraced it. I knew it was going to be a couple of days of terrible pain, but I went out and got burned because that's how you get tan. It peeled and then you were tan. And then you could build on that and it get deeper and deeper. And by the end of the summer, I was super dark. But that's what I did. And so did she. And, we didn't know. We certainly didn't know, and the best, the sunscreens back then were 15 at best. My wife now puts 100 on me. It's like a white coat of paste. But my wife saw something on my back a few months ago, and she is vigilant about it because of my sister, and she knows the risk. And so she forced me to go to the doctor. It turns out it was a thing called a mole, and it was totally fine. But I've had other moles removed because of concerns, and I'm fine. But I have to be vigilant because of that. If I were single, I don't know that I would have seen that or seen one that was bad. I wouldn't have gone. I certainly wouldn't go to the doctor near as much as I do because of her, and probably vice versa. That's why this happens. All right. But when you're thinking about how long am I going to live, because if you're taking Social Security, that's part of the equation. You got to factor in that as Americans, we're living much longer than we were even a decade and a half ago. This is Ethel Carterham. She's from England. She is the oldest living person in the world, very soon to be 116. She took the place a year or so ago of Sister Ina Lucas, who was 116 when she passed away. Connie Tanaka was 119, almost 120 when she passed away in April of 22. And Connie took the place of uh, Tomiko Ikukuda, who was 116 years before that. And before her, I've been doing this a long time, there was a lady in Jamaica who was 122. We're living longer, but really, does this apply to us? Because I didn't mention one American. Well, look, if you look, you can look up a list of the oldest living people in the world. If you look that list up 15 years ago, there were very few Americans on it. Very few, one or two. These days, it's chunk full. Our parents and grandparents are living much longer. Just the last time I did one of these, I had several people say that they had people 98, 103 years old that were parents or grandparents. People are living longer. And you've got to factor that in. Because when you're planning your Social Security out, when you're planning your income for retirement out, running out of money is the absolute worst case scenario. My grandfather, who I absolutely revered growing up, he lived with us after my mother divorced, and it was a wonderful experience being able to talk to somebody and get to know somebody who was much older than me and had deep understanding of certain things that I didn't have. But he used to have a saying. He'd say, "Getting old is hell, but being old and broke is the seventh level of hell." It's just a place you don't want to go. And if you can avoid that with some planning, it can make a huge difference. Okay, here's what we're going to cover today. Benefit basics, how they work, how you get them, strategies for married couples, options for divorced individuals, options for widows and widowers. If you're single going, hey, what about me? Social Security is about you. These are the offshoots. But you see that next line there about taxes? Boy, do you need to pay attention. We're going to dig into taxes, and everybody on this workshop should be concerned about taxes and Social Security. And we're going to dig into it in a way that explains it, I think, as simply but as profoundly as I possibly can. And then, why is coordinating benefits so critical and important? All right, how do I get Social Security? You had to work at a Social Security covered job, a place where you paid into Social Security and then your employer matched that. Now, if you're self-employed, you already know the bad news. You paid both sides with zero discount. They used the highest 35 years of earned wage income to calculate your Social Security benefit. What does that mean? Not the first 35 years you work, not the last 35 years. It's possible it could be either of those, but it's individually measuring each year, and they're taking the individual highest 35 of those years and putting them together to get your average income, highest average income for Social Security. Why is this important? Excuse me. It's important because If you don't have 35 years, first off, if you don't know how to look that up, I'll explain it to you a little later. But if you don't have 35 years, let's say you have 34, no big deal, right? Well, here's what they're going to do. They're going to add up those 34. It's the only 34 you have. So they're going to add them all up, and then they're going to prorate them according to what year they were. And then they're going to divide by 35 to get the average, not 34. If you have 30, they're still going to add those up and divide by 35, not 30. If you know much about math, you know if you're adding zeros to a division problem, your product, your answer is going to get much lower and much lower. Your average income for Social Security is going to go steeply down. Many people take their benefit and never even look to see, do I have a full 35 years? Is it the right 35 years? Do I have years that I shouldn't have or that I don't want to have? Have I checked the income to make sure it's correct? All of those are important factors in figuring out that you're getting the full amount of Social Security that you do. I've had clients that had gaps. I've talked to somebody, I asked their income, I got the information, we figure out, and then we do the plotting. How much is your Social Security benefit going to be at a certain age? And we do it, and it just doesn't look right. And I said, this doesn't make sense based on your income. Did you significantly increase your income? No. So we pulled the report from Social Security, and sure enough, there's a big gap of 9 years with zeros. And then when we figure out that they actually worked during that period of time, just for an individual, not a corporation, and that individual collected the Social Security money, but instead of matching it and sending it in, he used it for his own benefit. Well, we pull a 4506T that proves he filed his taxes, proves that income should have been reported, and within a very short period of time, I say short, 4 or 5 months to get it credited to his account, but we got it done. And then they go after the Social Security Administration and the IRS go after the individual who should have sent the money in and didn't. It's not their problem. But if you don't know, if you just filed, you would have paid the entire price for that. Now, you need 10 years of work history to qualify for a retirement benefit. Disability, only 5, but we're not talking about disability tonight. So you need 40 credits. A credit is 1/4 of a year, January, February, March, April, May, June, and so on. In that quarter, you can only earn 1 credit per quarter. Why you need 40 is 40 credits would be 10 years of full-time work. And I say full-time because in this scenario, you probably could have part-time work and qualify. You need $1,890 per quarter, less than $8,000 total, to qualify for a benefit. Now, if you've only earned $1,890, you're going to get that credit, but your total benefit is going to be very small. So once you have all those credits and they're credited to your account and you qualify for a full retirement benefit, the question is there anything that takes it away? Are there any exclusions or reductions? And one of the reasons that I bring this up is last year, the Social Security Fairness Act of 2025 was passed and signed into law on January 5th. It changed this. This used to be something we talk about because if you were a government worker or a spouse of a government worker, or you had a military pension, or you were a railroad employee with at least 10 years of service, or some state and local government workers, county workers, city workers, municipal workers, teachers who teach in a school district where they provide a pension, that opted out of paying into Social Security while that pension was being accumulated, they would have been affected by this, where they literally could have reduced significantly the amount that they received, or, listen to this, eliminated it. Now, the reduction happened mostly on the WEP, the WEP, or the windfall elimination provision. That's the actual employee that worked for the government or for the school district. And you say, well, Dave, if they worked, why would they have Social Security? Well, many of those people work and then retire and then go into the private workforce and start paying into Social Security. It only takes 40 credits, 10 years. If you retire at 50, you might have 15 or 20 years before you retire and take your second pension or Social Security. So, how did they lose it? Well, if you didn't have 31 years, they would reduce the amount that you received. And the GPO, or government pension offset, or we used to call the grumpy partner offset, would take that and reduce the inherited pension. So let's say I worked for the government for 40 years. I have a wonderful pension. My wife didn't. She worked in the private sector, but she didn't put 31 years in. Maybe, my wife personally was a teacher. And then when our kids hit, were born, she stepped away from it for a while and then didn't go back until our youngest was full-time in school. So when she retired or stopped teaching, she didn't have 31 years. I'm guessing she probably had maybe just less than 20. So I look at that and I say, okay, what does that mean? Well, I worked 40 years. I've got this pension, but something happens to me, but she inherits my pension if I go. And then she's got her pension and her Social Security. She has the same amount of money we had if I were living. She's going to be fine, right? Except the government would come in and say, hey, you don't have enough years in Social Security payments. And because you have this pension, we're going to reduce your benefit, or way more often than people realized, eliminate it altogether. Just say, no, we're not going to give any of that to you. Well, here's why they call it the Fairness Act. Because she paid for Social Security, and so did her employer. Why is she not entitled to the same benefit of somebody who didn't have a husband that worked or a wife that worked for the federal government? It made no sense at all. They put the money in to earn the benefit. It should be paid to them. And the Congress finally saw fit to correct this error and change it. And if you were in this, you've gotten the benefit back. They repaid you all the way back to December of 23, and now going forward, it doesn't happen at all. That's the benefit. That's the big change from last year. All right, how does Social Security work? You put in 6.2% of every paycheck you make up to a maximum income of $184,500. Once that $184,500 is hit, you no longer pay the 6.2%. Your employer matches that for a total of 12.4%. 12.5% is 1/8. So essentially, almost 1/8 of every paycheck you've ever received. For me, again, all the way back to when I was 14, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you, I worked at Woolworths washing dishes behind the lunch counter during the summer, mostly because it's the only place I could get a ride. And I hated that job. It was like, I remember getting so excited to go work and get a paycheck. I think I made $1.05 an hour, no tips. It was terrible. But in any case, that's what I made. And that was it. And a part of that, 1/8 of it, went into Social Security on my behalf. And every check I've ever had since then has done the same thing. Now, today's contributions cover tomorrow's benefits. So the money that's collected from Social Security this month, the money in your paychecks that goes in January, goes out in February to pay current recipients of Social Security. It's been that way ever since its inception in 1935, or in the first payout in 1940. Now, it's worked really well because the benefits paid to people who were alive in 1940 they weren't very much at all. Think about this. This was created in 1935 in the middle of the Great Depression. It was still the Depression in 1940. We hadn't entered in World War II yet. So, what are you talking about, Dave? Well, it was still the Great Depression, and the average lifespan of somebody in 1935 was 63. People didn't live to be 65 mostly. This paid for the people who lived longer than everybody else. It was set up to cover them because nobody expected them to live that long. Now, it's obviously much more than that now, but because of that, there were so few recipients that the people that were paying into it, there was easily covered the benefits. And then the next generation was considerably bigger, but not near as big as the baby boom generation who paid for them. And each generation successively bigger made this a very simple mathematical problem until we realized that there are a whole lot of baby boomers. Now, baby boomers paid way more in than benefits were being paid out, and it went into the Social Security Trust Fund so that it would help us receive benefits when we got older. And that's exactly what's happening now, but it's created some problems. It brings up the question of solvency. Now, I have a very different take on solvency than you might have heard before. I'm going to give you facts, and I want you to listen because so many people in our country today are being the wolves. People are trying to pull the wool over our eyes. We're getting misinformation all the time. I want you to understand there's some scare tactics going on. I think we can figure out why those scare tactics are happening. But let me give you the basic information here. 1983 was an incredibly important year for Social Security. It's the year that you got the letter. It's the first year that Congress recognized, hey, we got a problem here with baby boomers. And because we have this problem, we got to do something. They projected out and realized we were going to be in the red in 2010 if we didn't do something. So what did they do? They sent you the letter. Now, if you don't remember the letter, you'll probably remember it when I explain it to you. You got a letter. I remember my wife and I got it on the same day, a letter to her and a letter to me from Social Security about Social Security. And it seemed very odd because we were nowhere near retirement age in 1983. But we opened the letter wondering what in the heck, maybe they're raising benefits, right? Well, nothing could be further from the truth. The letter said something like this: if you were born after 1943, before 1954, or by 1954, you're prior to this, everybody's full retirement age was 65. But yours is no longer 65, it's going to be 66. And if you're born after 1954, for every year, add 2 months. So 1955, 66 in 2 months, 56, 66 in 4 months, and so on until you reach birth year 1960, where it maxes out at 66 in 12 months or age 67. And it's 67 for everybody born 1960 or after. Now, we were a little stunned because I remember my parents talking about 65. I remember my grandparents talking about 65. I remember every article I ever read about Social Security being 65. And all of a sudden, it's like something was taken from me. And it's the next day at work that I was at the water cooler having a conversation with a colleague, and we're talking about the letter because everybody got the letter. And I remember hearing for the very first time, not the last time by far, I heard this for the first time at the water cooler. Somebody about 10 feet away heard what we were talking about and said, what are you guys, in a very scoffing kind of attitude, what are you talking about Social Security? It's not going to be around when you retire anyway. That was the first time I ever heard that. I've heard it, it feels like 1,000 times since. Here's the thing. Every one of those people that said it was dead wrong. It is around, and it's not just around, it's okay. It's currently fully funded through 1930 through 2035. 9 more years. So what happens after that? It's fully funded 83 cents on the dollar after that for more than 70 years. So this isn't a Social Security running out of money problem. It's a Social Security doesn't have enough to pay 100% of the benefits. It's not 100 cents on the dollar problem. It's a 17 cents on the dollar problem. Don't misunderstand me. That's still a problem, and it deserves to be addressed, and it should have been addressed 10 years ago, 20 years ago. We could have fixed this simply. It still could be fixed simply. There are 4 basic proposals to improve or solve the solvency problem. Number 1, increase the minimum retirement age. People can still retire right now at 62. If we change that to 64 or 65, it helps the problem. Doesn't fix it, but helps it. Increase the full retirement age. Right now, 66 or 67, change it to 70 or 72. People are living much longer. Maybe that makes sense. Number 3, by the way, that helps some, doesn't fix the problem. The one that fixes the problem is this: increase the payroll tax. 4 years ago, the OMB did a study that says if they increase the payroll tax by 1%, so instead of 6.2 and 6.2 to the employee, 6.2 to the employer, if they raise that, so it was a half a point more to you, half a point more to me, and then half a point more to employers, it would have fixed the problem for 6 more decades. And they couldn't see past it because we don't know what birth rates are going to be. But it would have fixed the problem. Here's the problem: the longer they wait, the higher that increase has to be. Would anybody on this workshop not have gladly said, yeah, bump it up a half a point to save Social Security and make sure it's solvent? I don't think it was even a question. And then the one that everybody talks about, the one that you get pitched on all the time, is reduced benefits. Could they fix Social Security by paying people less? Yeah. Is that a viable solution? No. Why? Well, it would throw our country into absolute. First off, Congress has taken billions of dollars out of the trust fund and put it into the general fund over the years. So this is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. If it doesn't pay it, what else are they not going to pay? Our economy would collapse if this happened. It's not going to happen. And I'll give you an explanation really quickly of why. Last year in March or April, I can't remember which, I was at a conference in Coronado Bay, California. 200 of the top advisors in the country were invited. I was honored to be amongst them. I went and I was in awe. The speakers that I have looked up to for years were there. These are people I listened to for lots of advice on lots of subjects. And I had a great time. But they had breakout sections. And in one of those sessions, it was Social Security. And it's too important to me. I couldn't not go to that one. So I went eager. I'm maybe 4 rows back in the center. And they bring the panel in. And it's the moderator, who I do not know. But the first panelist I recognize because I've heard them speak before. Is a former director of the Social Security Administration. That's a big job. I don't know the next 2 people, but the fourth person is another former director of the Social Security Administration, one from one party, one from another party. So I thought this was going to be sparks flying. Actually, they were both very well aligned. But at the end of this, they had a great presentation. At the end, they opened it up, just like I'm going to do tonight, for Q&A. And the first question anybody could predict about this is, what about solvency? What's going to happen to Social Security when they run out of money? And both of them, almost in unison, said nothing. It's just, don't worry about it. It's not going to happen. They're not going to pay people less money. You don't have to worry about that. And they would press them. How? How do you know? Because. And they used a couple of examples, and they reminded us that just 4.5 years ago, the government, out of thin air, produced $4.5 trillion to pay out benefits, many of them not necessary, by the way. Many of them absolutely not necessary, by the way, to save us from a temporary situation called COVID. Out of the thin blue air, we came up with $4.5 trillion for something that kept people at work for a month or less. Do you not think they're going to continue to pay seniors the money that, by the way, this isn't a gift to them? I know everybody calls this Social Security an entitlement program, but you paid into it. I don't know anything that's an entitlement program that I paid for. I paid, and I didn't pay a little. Business Insider Magazine did a thing about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago. They estimated a couple making on average $50,000, husband and wife, between Medicare and Social Security, paid into the system $740,000 of their hard-earned money. Some of you are just going, hey, can I just have that back? And I get it, but that's not the way it works. It's a huge amount of money, and we should be very concerned about it, but it's not going anywhere. And then one of the former directors said this: the mindset of Social Security, the principle that it runs on, is you never, ever, ever give a Social Security recipient less money this year than they got last year. It's a principle that they run on. And here's the example they used. If your Medicare premium went up $100 in 2026, but your Social Security benefit went up 90 or 50, they would reduce the Medicare premium so that you got exactly the same amount, no less than you got last year. That's the principle by which Social Security operates, because seniors can't afford to take that hit. They're going to pay you every dime, every single dime. All right. How are benefits determined? You get your full retirement benefit at 66. For some of you at 67, you get 100%. If you take it early, you get less. If you take it as early as 62, the earliest you can take it, you get 75%. If you delay, for every year you delay, you get an 8% bump. They're called DRCs, delayed retirement credits. Now, they're not compounding, but they are stacking. So 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8% is 132%. The difference between taking your benefit at 62 and waiting till 70 is 177% more. It's like taking your 75% at 62 and getting the 100% you get at 66 on top of that. You cannot ignore how huge that is over any period of time. All right, 3 distinct Social Security benefits. Your benefit, the retired workers benefit, based entirely on your contributions. A spousal benefit. I've been married 49 years. My wife could have never worked a day in her life. Her spousal benefit is guaranteed because of my contributions, not hers. And then widower, survivor benefits. Again, the deceased worker's contributions earn those benefits. The survivor could have never worked a day in their life, male or female. They're entitled to the benefit because of their deceased spouse. Okay. I'm going to do this really quickly. The Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015 changed things a little bit. There are 3 distinct sets of rules that came out of this. I'm going to cover them very quick. It didn't affect you if you're single or you are divorced. It is only affects, or I'm sorry, not divorced, widowed. If you're a widower, this doesn't affect you. If you're a single benefit holder, it doesn't affect you. Here's the reason I'm going to cover this really quickly. In 2015, if you were born in 1950, it made a difference. Now you're 76 years old almost. So you should have filed. If you didn't, you've made a huge error. Same with people in group two who were born prior to January 2nd, 54. You just turned 72. You also should have filed. And if you haven't, you made a mistake. But people born after January 2nd, 54, that's you and me, it still affects. Now, what this changed is that used to be I would recommend that you walk in at 62 and go file for your benefit. Yes, I know, I just sort of made a case for waiting, right? But at 62, you could have filed and then suspended your benefit. So why would I do that? Because it would have allowed my spouse, husband or wife, to come in the next day and file what's called a restricted application for only the spousal benefit. That means my benefit is unaffected. So I filed, I suspended, nothing changed for me. My benefit is growing all the way to full retirement age, FRA, and then it's getting those DRCs all the way to 70. I'm unaffected by this. But my spouse could have been collecting half of my benefit starting at age 62. And in this case, in my case, my wife's benefit was unaffected too. Her benefit is still growing. She's collecting half of mine, but she has a benefit that was growing all the way to full retirement age and then getting those DRCs all the way to 70. And she could have switched whenever it made sense for more money. It was a great way to get additional benefits. That is completely gone. You can't do that anymore. So why am I bringing this up if you can't do it? Because when they did this, they also added deemed filing to everybody's benefit. So now when you go in to file, used to be I could pick how I wanted to file, what benefit I wanted. I can't do that anymore. When I go in, they don't even ask me. They go to their computer after I fill out the paperwork. They come up with, this is the payment that you can get today. It's the largest payment available to you today. And that's the one you get. They don't even ask. It's just the one you get. And once you take it, you're done. You can't switch. You're stuck. You're locked in. That's deemed filing. And it can make a huge difference. If you've made an error in how you want to do this or the timing that you want to do it, it could really wreak havoc with your benefit. For this group, people born after January 2nd, 54, timing strategies matter. You've got to make the right decision. Now, for married couples, for spousal benefits, you must be married for at least 1 full year. The primary worker must have filed. So, again, for my wife to get a spousal benefit, she can't get one right now because I haven't filed. I'm waiting until 70. So until I file, she can only get her own benefit. But once I file, she's entitled, and then she would generally get she get half of the PIA, or an amount equal to 1/2 of the primary worker's PIA, or primary insurance amount, essentially a number very close or exactly the same as your full retirement benefit. So you get 50% of that at full retirement age. So let's take a look. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement age is $2,000. Jane would be eligible for 1/2 at her full retirement age. She would get $1,000. Very simple, right? Let's take a look at the next subject because it's not as simple as it might seem. Again, full retirement age, you get 100% of your benefit. File it early, you get less. At 62, you get 75%. If you file for a spousal benefit early, you get even less, 70%. So let me explain in Jane's position. John, his benefit is $2,000. At full retirement age, she gets half, $1,000. At 62, she gets 70% of half. So half is $1,000. She gets $700. If we delay, we get these wonderful DRCs, delayed retirement credits, 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. If you delay getting a spousal benefit, you get nothing. There's no additional benefit. You get cost of living increases every year, right? They don't deny you that, but you don't get any increase for delaying. You get the same basic benefit that you would have gotten had you filed at full retirement age. I cannot tell you how many people over my career I've seen delay their filing because they thought that benefit was growing by those delayed retirement credits, only to find out that they don't get any of it. Worse, let's say I waited a year and then I find out, and I go, okay, well, let me go back and file. Can't do it. You can file your own benefit backwards, 6 months easy, sometimes in a year for a year, and they'll just give you a lump sum for that and then start your benefit. But you can't do that. You can only file a spousal benefit going forward, not backwards. No way around it. All right, survivor benefits. At the death of the first spouse, the surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit, right? The benefit of the deceased. So if a spouse passes away, you can take your benefit or you can take their benefit. Or 82.5% of the PI of the deceased if the deceased filed early. What does that mean? Well, so many people are filing early. This is one of the reasons I talk so much about solvency here, is because you are getting all this information about how you're not going to get paid and there's no money to pay you and they're going to cut your benefits and all this. And people have just reacted to that in the worst possible way. They panic. And I will tell you, I learned this lesson from my grandfather at a very young age. The worst financial decisions you make out of fear. Don't ever put yourself in that position. Information is absolutely vital to make good decisions. Fear is the worst possible thing. So because fear is driving that, in the last 2 years, 40% of Americans have filed for their benefit at the earliest possible time they could take it at 62. It is, there are huge consequences to that in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years. Those people are going to have massive problems out of fear. So the government has seen this, and actually some of it has caused it because they've promoted that fear too. But it's happened so much that they have said, okay, look, if your spouse files early at 62 and then dies and you file, we'll bump that 75% up to 82.5% if you deceased died early and you file early. Okay. Most common mistakes: higher wage earner files early and short changes survivor benefits. This happens all the time. And then both delay past full retirement age. Nobody claims that spousal benefit, thinking that there are delayed retirement credits and there are none, and they just make a huge mistake. All right, divorced individuals. If you are applying for divorced spouse benefits, you must have been married for, listen to it, 10 years in a row to the same person. No stopsies and starties, no switching dance partners in the middle of the song. 10 years to the same person. Once you've reached that 10-year part, you're fine. But you can't currently be married. If you're divorced, you had a 10-year marriage and you divorce and you remarry, those benefits are gone. You have a current spouse, and the only benefits available to you are from that current marriage. But if you become unmarried again, or you become widowed again, those benefits magically reappear and are available to you. Now, you can't get both. You don't get that benefit plus the current. That doesn't work. It's one or the other, but it gives you some options. Now, the same benefits and amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as they do for regular spousal benefits. There is zero difference between spousal benefits and divorced spouse benefits, with one tiny, powerful exception. It's called the independently entitled rule, and it affects divorcees who were married or married for at least 10 years, but then divorced for at least two. So if my wife wants to file for a spousal, I've already told you, she can't do that until I file. But we've been married 49 years. If we had been divorced for 2 years, once that 2-year window is done, she can go in and file whether I have filed or not. It's no longer necessary for me to file for her to get her current benefit. That's the only difference, and it's pretty powerful. All right, Bipartisan Budget Act for divorced individuals, no difference. Again, you can't do that. You cannot use a restricted application to get benefits while after your spouse files and suspends. It doesn't work. They have to be collecting benefits unless you're divorced and then have been at least divorced for 2 years. Now, this applies to people born prior to 50. It applies to the people born after 50, before January 2nd, 54. And if your ex born after 24, restricted application is still no longer available, but you can claim your own benefit as early as 62 and then switch to a larger divorced spouse benefit when your ex reaches full retirement age. Now, here's the fun one. This can be done as many times as you have qualifying ex 10-year marriages to ex-spouses. So I've seen 3. I don't think I've ever seen 4. I think that's a unicorn that doesn't exist, but it's possible. And the government is so generous here, they'll let you pick and choose which one you want to do first. You can take the lowest income first and then delay as long as you can to get the largest one grown up. It's pretty interesting. All right, common questions that we have from divorced individuals. Do divorce benefits affect their current spouse or other dependents? So my spouse, I divorced from, they're remarried, they got kids. If I file, is that going to affect them? No. You could have 2 ex-spouses both receiving benefits and a current spouse receiving benefits. Your benefit is unaffected. Are they notified? This is probably the most common question I get from divorced individuals. Are they notified? If I go in and file, is the Social Security Administration going to tell them? Are they going to know somehow that I'm getting benefits from them? First off, it doesn't matter because there's no effect to them. It doesn't lower their benefit or change it at all. It doesn't limit it. But the answer is they're not going to tell them anyway. Just like HIPAA prevents your doctor from sharing information about your health to anybody without your written permission, Social Security can't share information with you about anybody else, period, with one exception. If you're a divorced individual and you can prove, you're going to have to prove that you have the right to file, meaning copy of your marriage license, copy of the final divorce decree showing at least 120 months, 10 years, then they're bound to give you the information necessary to help you file for a duly entitled benefit. That's it, though. All right, widows and widowers. To qualify for widow benefits, you must be, or widower benefits, you must be at least 60 years old. This is the earliest that you can get any retirement benefit out of Social Security. The minimum for everybody else is 62, but you can get it as early as 60. But you must have remained unmarried from the time of the death of your spouse until your 60th birthday. Now, you get married the day after your 60th birthday, and you're still entitled to these. But if you get married even for a day prior to your 60th birthday, you don't get anything. And then you had to be married at least 9 months prior to the death. I don't know, back in the 40s and 50s there, that you'd see these TV shows where they would, wheel the 90-year-old guy in, and the widow, or the soon to be widow, would marry him for his benefits. That's not possible anymore. You had to be married at least 9 months prior to the death. Couple of exceptions to that, where you could have been married less than that, but they're very slim. Um, a member of the military or armed forces of the United States government killed in line of duty, a full-time fireman or policeman killed in line of duty, or a law enforcement officer killed in line of duty. That's it. Those are the only exceptions. All right, I'm going to do a quick case study on timing, and then I'll show you this. And I've got a couple more things to show you. I'm looking like we're pretty close to on time here. So let's get through this. This is a study about what's the difference between filing and how do I avoid making mistakes doing that. John, never elected, dies at 64. John's benefit at full retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane, 5 years younger than John, age 59 when John passes away. She remains unmarried until age 60, so she qualifies in every way. But Jane's benefit, her estimated benefit, this is hers, not his, she can't get until at least 62. That's the only way to get it. Would have been at 62, $1,197. Let's take a look. I call the first option here file without thinking. And the reason I do that is it's what many of us do. We go into Social Security and we simply say, how much can I get? In fact, we know this because Social Security tells us the most common question they're asked is, how much can I get? Excuse me again. I got one of those tickles. All right, so here it is. If she walks into Social Security and she says, how much can I get? They're going to say, well, the only benefit you can get is the survivor benefit, because your benefit doesn't start until 62. And it's not 1537 because that's the full retirement age benefit. So you would get, I'm sorry, it's not 2,150, it's 1537 because that's how much you get at 60. So we're going to make this very simple. We're not going to do complicated math, no cost of living adjustments, just straight painted out 1,537 a month for 300 months. That's 25 years. That's what we're going to do. That total benefit payout is $461,100. Not bad. Strategy one, don't take it. Let's say you've got a job and you are making $40,000 or $50,000 a year. Work 2 more years. And then don't take the survivor benefit. Take your own benefit, that $1,197. Now it's a little less, but here's the reason why. If you take the $1,197, the survivor benefit, the widow benefit, maxes out in just 5 more years at $2,150. When that happens, you switch. You say, I don't want this benefit anymore. I want that one because it's more. And guess what? You're entitled to do that. Just by doing that, you get more than $80,000 extra. You get $538,835 over the course of your lifetime. Now, I think strategy 2 maybe looks even better. Jane says, look, I can't wait 2 years. I don't have a job. I need the money and I need it now. So take the survivor benefit. Take that $1,537 a month. But I need you to remember something. Your other benefit doesn't disappear. You earned it. It's only $1,197, but guess what? Every month it grows, every year it gets extra, all the way to your full retirement age. And then it gets those DRCs all the way to 70. And that's when it maxes out at $2,108 a month. So you get to collect 1537 between 60 and 69. And then when you turn 70, you get to switch to 2108. That gets you 563,904, more than $102,000 more than you would have got if you just walked in and said, "What can I get?" and didn't pay attention to this. Here's the thing. I don't know anybody. I don't care how much money you have. You can't afford in retirement to walk away from $100,000 more money. It's just too important to not pay attention to that. That's a big deal. All right. If you decide to take your benefit at 62, age 63, 64, 65, for some of you at 66, and you earn more than $24,480 because you decided to keep working while you were collecting your benefit, or more importantly, you decided to take your benefit while you're still working, then for every $2 over that benefit amount, they're going to reduce your Social Security, or that accumulated amount of 24,480. For every $2 over that, they're going to reduce your Social Security benefit by $1. Here's the problem. Let's say I start taking Social Security at 62. I make $58,000. I've got $2,000 a month of Social Security. At the end of the year, when I will have owed back every dime of the $2,000 a month of Social Security I took, every bit of it, plus interest. And if you're thinking, well, what do I do now? Now I've decided to quit. I'm not working anymore. I'm really retired. I spent that money on a new car or a boat or a vacation or a retirement party. I don't know what you spent it on, but you don't have it anymore. And now I owe Social Security $24,000 plus interest. What do? You pay it back to them. And if you can't pay it back, guess what? They have an unbelievable collection system. They just stop paying you your payment until it's paid back. Or if you're lucky, they'll negotiate and let you keep half of your payment while they collect the other half until it's paid back. This is a terrible way to start retirement, one that you should not do. By the way, in the year that you turn full retirement age, you're not scot-free. In that year, if you make more than $65,160, for every $3 over that, they're going to reduce your Social Security benefit by $1. Now, for many of us, this doesn't make a difference. And by the way, this is earned income. This isn't pensions. This is W-2, 1099, earned income. It's not business income. It's earned income. It's not dividend income. So it's non-work income. So you can make all the money you want in a pension or something like that. It doesn't affect this. But in the year that you turn full retirement age, here's how it works. If your birthday's in November, and you start taking your benefit in November or December, you don't really have to worry, because it's the money that you earn after you turn FRA, full retirement age. But if you turn full retirement age in January or February or even March, you may have to pay a lot more attention to this. So many people file and don't pay attention to this. It's one of those things that you don't want to surprise at. Now, once you've passed full retirement age and you want to wait till January 1st of the year after that, you can earn $1 bazillion and there's zero reduction in your benefit. But you're going to pay taxes. Now, I wish I could ask you to raise your hand and see you, and wonder how many of you knew that Social Security was taxable before today. And then I'd ask the second question, how many of you thought that the one big beautiful bill took away taxes on Social Security? Well, you owe taxes on Social Security. It's taxable. And the one big beautiful bill did not take taxes away from Social Security. It gave you a $6,000 additional deduction in 2025, last year, in 2026 and 2027. If your income doesn't exceed $150,000, if it does, then other requirements are in effect, and it usually goes to zero. But if that there's still tax on the Social Security. Worse, most people don't realize how serious a deal this is. Well, most people don't realize that you've already paid tax on your Social Security. What do you mean by that, Dave? Well, when Social Security bill was written in 1935, it was written there's 12 pages to that bill, and it specifically spells out that your benefit amount is tax-free retirement income because the amount you put in was taxed. What do I mean by that? Well, when they collect the FICA, and you're paying it into the system for all the years that you've been working, when you fill out your tax return, did you get a deduction for that? No, you did not. You paid tax on it. It was intended that you pay tax on that so that you get a tax-free benefit. But remember when I told you 1983 was a big year for baby boomers? That we were sort of targeted because they saw us, Congress saw us as the problem? Well, this is what they did. They decided to start taxing Social Security. Let me show you what I mean. By the way, if you're wondering how complicated this is, oh, it's not complicated, Dave. Here's the publication 915. You can get it at irs.gov/forms 915. It's 33 pages long with a worksheet. It'll tell you how to get it. But this chart Congress created in 1983, and it was aimed, I see those little arrows pointing at the end of it, is aimed at you and me, at baby boomers. Let me explain what this is. It's called provisional income. And if you've written nothing else down, I would write that down. Provisional income. If you're single and you earn $25,000 of provisional income, 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. If you're single and you earn $34,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. I love Social Security because it's just so interesting to me, but I spend probably way too much time on it. 2,752 pages in the bill, 83 of which are devoted strictly to taxes. But there's this wonderful line in those 83 pages that I just sometimes when I need to giggle, I look at it because it says, we never tax 15% of your Social Security. I just think that's hilarious. Like, whoopee. If you are married, I don't care how you're filing, single, you could be filing married, filing separately, jointly, doesn't matter. If you're a married person, if you jointly earn $32,000 of provisional income, 50% of that is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. What do I mean by that? I mean last dollar tax. So first dollar is $1, we could tax 10%. And then it goes on for a little bit. And then 20,000 or 25,000. And then it's 12%. And then most of us wind up in either the 22 or the 24% bracket. Some of us end up in the 32 or the 35. But whatever the last dollar of income you paid, if that was 22 or 24, that's what the tax is on this. So if you get $40,000 of Social Security and you're paying tax on 25% or 25% tax on that, that's 10 grand. It adds up quickly, and it's much worse than that. I'll explain in a second. But if you make 44,000 provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Okay, let me explain this. Here's why I say we were targeted. If your grandparents had $44,000 of provisional income in 1983, they were amongst the highest 2% of income earners in retirement in the United States of America. This wasn't pointed at them, maybe the very wealthiest of them, but this was pointed at almost every one of us. See, okay, I hear somebody saying, "What the heck is provisional income?" Well, let me tell you what it includes. It's all your W-2 income. No surprise there, right? All your gross income, all your pension income, all unearned income, all wages, all interest, any interest you earn, any tax exempt interest you earn. Maybe you've bought a bunch of municipal bonds thinking you don't want to pay tax in retirement. No problem, but we're going to count the income from that to qualify you to pay tax on your Social Security. All 1099 income, commission income, any real estate income. Maybe you work in the real estate business and you sell a house, you get a 1099, fully counts as provisional income. All real estate income. What do I mean by that? All capital gains income. So if you sell a house and you have capital gains, it counts. If you have rental properties and you're thinking, hey, I figured out how to really not pay a lot of taxes using schedulees and depreciation, so no problem. The full rental amount counts as provisional income. Business income counts, whether it's a partnership or a subchapter S corporation or a sole proprietorship or an LLC or a subchapter S corporation. Maybe you get a K1 for the profits of an S corp, and many times those aren't taxable, but they count as provisional income. Many of the time, you get those K1s for money that was paid out or not paid out, but profit of the company, but you didn't take it because you need the money in the company to pay payroll or buy equipment or expand or do whatever. It still counts even though you didn't receive it as provisional income. Maybe you're like my son-in-law and daughter who overpay their taxes every year so they can get this big refund because it's a way to save money. It's a terrible way to save money, but they do it. And I've seen them. They've done work on their house. They've bought a car. They've done vacations, whatever it is. But that money that you receive in the year that you receive it counts as provisional income. Here are the interesting ones. Got an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, any tax deferred account where you paid money in without paying taxes, and when you take it out, it's fully taxable. That counts as provisional income. A SEP, a SERP, a SLRP, any tax deferred account, when the money comes out, fully counts as provisional income. I see some of you are wondering, wait a minute. I remember my advisor telling me it was really smart. I should pour as much money as I could into my IRAs, into my 401ks, because it grows tax deferred. I don't pay tax on it until I take it out, and then I'll have a smaller tax bracket. I laugh because it's sort of funny at how bad most people in my business are at tax planning. The thing is, you probably won't have a smaller amount of taxes, and your bracket probably won't be worse. And worse, many of you have more than $1 million in accounts like that. And when you pull it out, it's going to wreak havoc on your plan. And nobody sat down and looked at that and said, oh my gosh, how do we fix this before I hit 73 and I can't do anything about it? Oh, yeah. Some of you are doing the math in your head and you're wondering, maybe I'm close. Well, let me add it up for you. There's one other thing. 50% of the amount of money that you receive from Social Security counts, as provisional income. 50% of the amount they're trying to figure out if you make too little so we don't tax you. They're adding it in to push you into the bracket so you pay tax. Excuse me. That's how it works. That's how they get you. And it's killing people. By the way, you might say, well, how many times has this been prorated? Never. It was never intended to be prorated. They never intended to fix the problem. They intended for inflation to fix it so that you got stung. If they had added proration to provisional income from 1983 forward, that 44,000 would be 142. And if it were, I wouldn't be talking about this. I wouldn't even mention it, but that's not the way it works. All right. I'm going to do my final case study here. Bear with me. I'm a couple minutes over, but this is maybe the most important thing I'm going to talk about tonight. This is taxes and planning, and it is critical. This is a typical couple, average age 64 and 62. This is very typical of what we see. Just over 34,000 in combined annual Social Security income if they both file at 62. They want to retire early. Why not? Why not? They have $752,000 in 401ks and IRAs, right? They've saved. They've got some money. Now, some of you are saying, is that all? And I get it. Maybe that's not as much as you have. And you might be surprised because this couple with only 752,000 has a massive tax problem. And some of you are saying, I wish I had 752,000. Well, this couple with $750,000 in 401ks and IRAs starting retirement has a huge running out of money problem too. We're going to say they get a 6% annual return on their investments, 3% inflation. They need $70,000 per year of inflation-adjusted after-tax income. We assume they're going to live to 86 and 89. Here's what this looks like. If they file at 62, the earliest time to take their benefits, they are walking away from $186,496 of Social Security. And folks, they need every nickel of that to survive. They're just saying, hey, we don't need it because nobody's shown them what's going to happen. Let me show you a cash flow. This is what their retirement looks like. The blue bars, the bottom bars, the blue ones, that's their Social Security. The orange bars on top of that, that's their $752,000. The black line, the graded line, that's the Social Security, or that's the $70,000 inflation adjusted income over the course of their retirement. The white space at the end of the yellow bars, the orange bars, that's nothing. They ran out. This couple started with $750,000. 2/3 of the way through retirement, they're dead broke. Do you remember when I said before 46.1% of Americans end up with zero money, not enough to fund their own funeral? This couple started with $750,000, and that's exactly where they are. And they've got another third of their retirement to figure out how to live only on Social Security. Now, don't misunderstand me. They're not broke. They have an income. But can you imagine the lifestyle change that would have gone from the year before they ran out and the year they ran out? It's inconceivable. It's so massive that it's really, really bad. I'm going to show you a corrected cash flow. So if you were to sit down with an advisor and they understood what they're talking about in taxes and planning, here's what they would show you. This is the same couple. They're still retiring at 62. But look at the difference. They have They have enough money to make it till the end. Let me show you why. Those blue bars, that's their, I'm sorry, the orange bars, that's their 401ks, their IRAs. When they take money out of that, I don't care when they take money out of that, they're going to pay tax because they've never paid tax on it. But the blue bars, that's Social Security. They've already paid tax once. But if they take it out early, they're going to pay tax twice because if they start Social Security here in the very first year, like they're doing, it's not enough. They have to start immediately pulling money out of the 401ks and the IRAs. And it forces them not to pay tax on one, but to pay tax on both. By doing it this way, by growing the Social Security significantly, by guaranteeing that they're going to pay the least amount of taxes possible, they don't just survive, they thrive. Now, there's lots of other things we could do for this goal. I'm literally, the only thing we're doing here is changing the way they file for their Social Security and how they take money out for retirement. That's it. It's a massive difference that you just can't ignore. Look, tons less in federal taxes, tons less. 186,000 more in Social Security. This is such a big deal. It's a massive difference. All right, whether you're close to retiring or you're just turning 50, you should always check your Social Security earnings record to make sure each year is counted correctly, to make sure there aren't any errors. AARP says that, not me. It's also so important to be aware that there is a statute of limitations on when you can fix these things. Delaying might be in the worst possible interest for you. Okay, every time I do one of these, I always offer a complimentary. I said this the other last time I did this. I said complimentary, and somebody said, "Is it what? How much does it cost?" It costs nothing. It's completely complimentary. It's free. I'm going to explain what this is, what we do, how we do it, why we do it, and then I'm going to explain who's going to do it for you. Just bear with me a minute or two. It includes a break even, which is, don't misunderstand me. It's not that it's not a big deal. It's just I see so many other friends. It's the easiest thing to figure. I see so many other people focusing on this, and it's probably the least important thing I can show you. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying it's not important, but there's so much more. It's easy to use and implement. It'll be point and click. It will not be complicated to understand. It'll look at alternatives and shortfalls. What if I don't like that? What are my alternatives? How about if I did it this year instead of this year? What would that look like? What if I have a shortfall, Dave? What can I do to not run out of money, to be better off, and to make sure that I survive retirement? And then it'll look at retirement income, cash flow, tax analysis. How do I save money in taxes? Isn't this what this is all about? I want to pay the least amount of money in taxes I possibly can. Can you help me? Yeah. And then we'll look at your income plan and we'll do an assessment. Are you counting the assets you have for enough? Are you over counting them in terms of how much income they can provide to you in retirement? Are you under counting them? I will tell you, we see that just as often. And is that going to hurt you? No, you're probably not going to run out of money if you do that. But your lifestyle is going to change dramatically if you don't know that. That's part of enjoying. It's not just about not surviving retirement. It's about thriving and enjoying it. And then what about Roth conversions? The single item that I did not talk about when I talked about provisional income is Roth, because it's the only thing that doesn't count. Roth money doesn't count. So should I be doing conversions? And if so, how much? And if so, when? And can you tell me, is that going to save me money? How much? Because I want to make sure I'm doing it for the right reason. And then what about coordinating assets? If somebody hasn't got a plan that looks at Social Security, that looks at their retirement benefits, that looks at qualified and non-qualified assets, IRAs, 401ks, pension plans, life insurance, and is coordinating them to get the best the best plan for retirement, they don't have a plan, or at least not one that's going to work. It's so important that you look at these. All right. If you haven't done this already, you can get your own statement by going to www.ssa, Social Security Administration.gov. If you have not already done that, I'm guessing at least half of you have. If you haven't done that, you'll need to set up an account. They're going to ask you to prove who you are. They're going to ask you. I think they asked me what car I had in 1974 or something. It was one of the questions. They're going to ask you questions that only you would know, and that they have the information already, so they know that you know it. And then you'll be able to schedule your complimentary consultation for your Social Security analysis. I'm going to give you a couple of options here, and then I'm going to put up a link that you can do, and I'll explain who's going to do this for you. All right, option one is everything I just told you. It's the complete analysis. It's the tax strategies. It's the retirement asset and Social Security coordination. It's the whole kit and caboodle done for you, complimentary. Option now, if you've got money in 401ks, in IRAs, in any kind of retirement account, or you have a significant amount of non-qualified assets, investment accounts, things like that, you need a tax plan to get through retirement. This will do that for you. It will set you up and do that. If you don't, here's the good news. If you are relying primarily on income from Social Security, you will not have a tax problem. Nobody who only has Social Security income, doesn't matter how much it is, you will not have a tax problem. Because when they figure provisional income, they only count half of that to get to it. So you're not going to get there. That's given. But you still need a timing plan. That's why I've created the workbook. Option two is just the workbook. It will get you through any of those questions and do it for you. So those are the two options. Option one, full plan. Option two. Now, let me explain who's going to do this for you tonight. I've asked a really good friend of mine, Sam Addington. Sam works for me in my firm, but Sam's a special guy. Let me tell you a little about his background, and then we're going to get to the Q&A. Sam entered the military at 18. His father was an aviator, and he wanted to be an aviator. And Sam qualified in every possible way. And they trained him how to fly Apache helicopters, the most lethal helicopter, most lethal machine in the armed forces. And it's the hardest thing to fly. Military experts all over say that the Apache is the hardest aircraft to fly of any aircraft, because it's not just incredibly hard to fly. The weapon systems and everything are so complex on it that it takes just immense amount of commitment and focus to be able to do that. Well, Sam didn't just do well at it, he excelled at it. So much so that after tours overseas in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, he wound up as a training officer teaching the next generation to fly Apache helicopters. I have such reverence for people that have served. My family has always felt that way. I can trace back in my family to relatives that I have that served in the military during in the 1700s during the war against the British for the Revolutionary War. We're proud of them, and I could not be more proud of Sam. But the thing about Sam is while he was in the military, he earned his BS, his Bachelor of Science, and then he earned an MBA in finance, and he excelled at it. Now, Sam's always loved money, finance, and numbers. It's just part of his DNA. But to do that while he's flying helicopters is something else. But it requires, to me, and I think one of the reasons Sam is so good at this, what he does requires such intent focus, such precision, such an ability to drill in and understand hard concepts, and then his ability to teach that to others puts him exactly where he needs to be when he's talking to people who need to understand how complicated things like taxes get explained in terms of your retirement. He's gifted at it. I've asked him to do this tonight because I am absolutely convinced that when you see the work he does, you're going to be wowed by it. So I'm going to ask our tech team to put up in the chat. They'll stick the link, which will take you right to it. And I'm also going to ask them to put up a QR code to on the screen. If you don't know QR codes, just take your camera on your phone and hold the camera up. Don't take a picture, but hold your camera up. You'll see it'll have a yellow or an orange circle or rectangle. Touch that, it'll take you right to it. If you can't do that, take a screenshot of it and then go to the screenshot and touch it. Now, let me finish one thing about Sam that I need to let you know. He has an APM. He has the same NSSA qualification that I do. He's done his homework and he understands Social Security backwards and forwards. But he also has an APMA from the College of Financial Planning. That's an accredited portfolio management advisor. It tells him how to do planning for people in retirement at the highest level. And maybe most important, he carries a Series 66 license, which just like me makes him a fiduciary advisor. Now, my firm only has fiduciary advisors. We don't have anything that isn't. But Sam, I mean, it's a special part of who Sam is. I think you're going to be impressed with him. I'm going to take a personal moment for a second and just explain why we do this. I love Costco. Now, for some of you, Costco doesn't exist. You have BJ's Wholesale or Sam's Club or some other thing like that. I love Costco. It's a little bit of a drive for us, my wife and I, but we go on a regular basis, and I typically push her to go on Saturdays, which is a horrible time to go to Costco. I'm sure some of you are going, what? Because it's crazy. I don't have to go on Saturdays. I can go any day of the week, but I choose to go because on Saturdays, if you walk into Costco, it takes about 30 seconds before you start smelling stuff that's being cooked or fried or microwaved that I've never seen or heard of, but they want me to try. And I love trying new stuff. And the reason I love trying it is because if I try something I really like, I want more. My wife and I have a system. She doesn't even look to see what it is. I stop and I get a taste of something, and she just looks at me. If I get a big smile, hey, she says, okay, we'll take one. And if I nudge her, that means two. And that's how we get through the store. It's fascinating for us to try new things. I know that trying something that you really find fascinating it's self-serving, but I'm going to tell you, it's how we built our company. More than 1,200 client accounts, clients in 43 states. We just celebrated our 10th anniversary. I will tell you, that's an accomplishment, and we're very proud of it. I'll tell you the last thing. There's this guy, an actor who I loved back in the 70s. I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie or the show called The Paper Chase. He was his last name was John. It was John Houseman, and he played Dr. Kingsley, who was the professor of contracts at Harvard, and he played that part beautifully. But after that, in the '80s, he did some commercials, and he had this deep, thick accent and a little bit of snooty, but he would say, "We get business the old-fashioned way. We earn it." That's what we're doing. We are trying to earn business by showing you how good we are. And if you sit down with Sam, I promise you that's exactly what you're going to see. And you're going to get something that you need and is incredibly value in the midst of it to boot. Okay. Thank you for being patient with me. I'm going to ask our tech team to pull up the first questions. We're going to get through, hopefully we can get through all of these. All right, here we go. First question from Ed. What parts of Medicare are needed to purchase if there is employer health insurance while retired? None. If you have employer health insurance, you defer Medicare until you are actually retired. If you have employer furnished health insurance, and you won't have to do anything. Once you take it, though, then you'll start paying into the system, even if you're not taking your Social Security at that time. And there's two parts that you pay: the Medicare and the Part B. It's hospitalization one is slightly different, but it's all bundled into one thing. Good question, Ed. Thanks. All right, Viola. Some people live longer. A lot of people never get to collect Social Security. They are dying in their 50s and 60s. So far, I'm hearing absolutely nothing helpful. Sorry. I think you're right, but far more people live past 65 than die in their 50s and 60s, Viola. Okay, keep going. Okay, Congress should put the money back, not raise the age limits. Yeah, I know. I don't think anybody here will disagree with you. Lisa, they need to raise the payroll tax and the yearly income level they collect from. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Okay, Linda, one spouse retires at 62 and files for SSI, but the other keeps working to 68. Are spouse benefits available to the not yet 68-year-old? No, not until the person on SSI reaches full retirement age and it switches from disability to a retirement account. And at that point, absolutely. But again, only if their benefit is less than, if their own benefit is less than half of the person on SSI, which is possible, but unlikely too. Jackie, can I file my Social Security when ex-spouse files and the amount is more than my SSI, I'm able to switch to the ex-spouse benefit? Yes. Yeah, that's an easy yes. Let me back up. Jackie, it's going to be reduced, though, because you started taking benefits early. But you still can do it, and it still might be in your best interest. Okay. Next question. Linda, if my spouse dies before ever filing for Social Security, am I still eligible for his benefits? Yeah, it's called a survivor benefit, and you're actually you're actually eligible for 100% of their full retirement age benefit, discounted by whatever age you take it to. So if you took it at 60, which is the earliest you can take it, you're going to get about 70% of that, and then it goes up all the way to 100% of it at your full retirement age. Great question. All right. Can I file my Social Security when I think we just answered this question? All right. Linda, if my spouse dies before ever filing Social Security, my still we just answered this one as well. Tech. Corrine. I'm sorry, Corianne. No, it's Corrine. So if I am at full retirement age in April of 2026, I will be 66 in 10 months and continue to work. I am single. Should I wait until January 27 to file? Yeah, the answer is possibly. It depends on the amount of income you're earning. If it's more than 24,000, yeah. If you're making more than well in this year, you'll be full retirement age. So it's if it's more than 65,000, then you need to look at it hard. If it's less than that, there's no reason to wait. Uh, once you hit once you hit your April date, you're fine. And if you go to April, here's the trick, Corinne. Just save your pay stubs. If you start taking it in April at your full retirement age, there is no problem and no tax or no earnings test, no reduction in benefit for any of the money you earn after you hit that. But Social Security doesn't know when you made it. So they may wonder if you made it before that or after that. Just save your pay stub so you can prove when. You'll have no problem at all. Okay. If you make less, this is Terry. If you make less than 25,000, how much is your Social Security taxed? 24,500 is a cut. So if you make less than 25, probably none. Probably none. Well, hold on. I'm sorry. You said taxed. I'm thinking earnings test. And the answer is it depends. So if you make $25,000, you need to talk about, is there any pensions? Are there any money from 401ks or IRAs or other benefits that are coming to you in retirement plus 50% of your Social Security? So it's not about how much you make, it's about how much is your provisional income. And if you have those other things, if you have nothing else, and it's just that 25,000, you're single, you're probably going to pay some tax on your Social Security. But it's a calculation that has to be figured out. If you throw in any of the other stuff, 401ks, IRAs, and stuff, you definitely need a plan. Okay. Carl, if I have 30% of my 401k as Roth and the balance pre-tax, how is it determined which fund I am spending for taxability? Yeah, well, you have to specify when you take the money out, which fund you're pulling it out of. You can't just pull money out of that without doing that. They're going to ask you. So if you have an account at Schwab or Fidelity or someplace, when you do a withdrawal, they're going to ask where do you want this to come from, and you need to specifically tell them. But there are rules with Roth too about when you can pull it out. There's timing involved and stuff, so you have to be aware. But definitely, this is the kind of thing that planning does. But it's a great question. Okay, Judy or Jody. I'm sorry, Jody. Can you tell us the rules for taking your ex-husband's Social Security? I was married for 17 years. I remarried at age 58 and then only married a year. Can I still collect my first husband's Social Security? I'm 64. I think that is what you said. That is exactly what I said. So as long as you're currently not married, the first husband's benefits are now available to you. And if you've been divorced more than 2 years, you're eligible now. Understand that applying for them at 64, you're going to get less than you would if you wait till full retirement age at 66 or 67. But yeah, they're available to you right now. And Judy or Jody, sorry, and if something happens to him and he passes away, you're also entitled to the survivor benefit, the full amount of his Social Security at your full retirement age. Okay. Okay. CPK, please put the actual link In addition to the scan code, I'm hard of hearing and using phone screws up on my speech. So I'll ask the tech team to put the link in one more time. Thanks for that. I appreciate it. We'll do it right now. There it is, like magic. All right. Lisa, is there a link for the workbook? I went to my phone, but it won't let me. So we just posted it again, Lisa. All right, there we go. Uh, Mer- Merlene, so I'm single. Is there any benefit for taking Social Security before FRA if I'm earning over 100K annually? I would say no. I definitely would have. I mean, I would suggest you meet with Sam, but because in your situation, you need a specific when should I do this, and my guess is there's some coordination with other things if you're making that much money. But the answer is no. I cannot think of a reason that it would make sense to take it because you're going to not get anything before your full retirement age. You're gonna just in the reduction in the benefit from the earnings test is whatever you get, you're gonna lose. They're gonna take it away anyway. So they're gonna give it to you, and then you're gonna pay it right back with interest. I think it's a bad idea. Thanks for the question. Can you find out if my ex filed for his benefits before he passed? Yeah, so there's definitely ways to do that. You go in, you make an appointment with Social Security, and you have to have your marriage license and your final divorce decree. Those are both things. The final divorce decree you should have, or your lawyer will have, if you don't have a copy, and the marriage license is public record and wherever you got married. So easy to do. But yeah, you can definitely do it. All right, Lisa, if I filed my Social Security at full retirement age, but now I have changed my mind and want to wait till later, can I do that? Yeah. So you can pause your benefit. You can stop it. Now, here's the thing. If it's less than a year, you have the ability to pay back the money that you took, and it's as if you never took it. If you don't have that and can't or don't want to do that, you can pause it, and you'll never make up the increase of the time that you got the benefit, but it will start increasing from this point forward all the way to 70 to get the maximum amount you need or want. So, great question. Yeah, the answer is yes. All right, Corrine, are we better off using our 401k before filing for Social Security? Yeah, that's what Sam is all about. So he can work that out so that you know exactly what to do and have a plan. But that's very, very often the right move. But you wouldn't do that without a plan. Billy, how are you taxed on Social Security when you retire, but spouse worked making 150,000? Excellent. So let's do earnings test first. Earnings test is a reduction of your benefit. That only matters on your income if you're for your benefit. Your spouse's amount would affect them with their income, but it wouldn't affect you. Taxes, though, are taxes. And if they're making 150,000, they're definitely going to be paying taxes on Social Security, the full amount, all 85% of that amount is going to be taxed at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. And you should definitely have a plan on how to reduce that, when to take your benefits to make the most sense, and not to get caught into the trap of just paying more taxes than you have to. Keep keep going. Looks like think we're getting close here. Kathy, if I'm at full retirement age, 66 and 10 months, is there any benefit to working until I'm 70 if I have been told I actually lose money by waiting? Well, that's not true. The benefit is that you get an additional 8% per year, an additional two-thirds of 1% per month for every month that you delay, 8% per year. So you're at 66 and 10 months. You have 3 more years and 2 months. So 25.5% more benefit by waiting till 70. If you died at 71, that probably wouldn't have helped you. But if you have a spouse that's going to use this benefit, it would help them. It certainly will help you if you're going to live to 80, probably 79. It's a big deal. And since most people are living way longer than they think, it's almost certainly going to help you. I don't know who would tell you that you're actually losing money by doing that. I think what they're saying is you're losing money because you're not collecting the benefit. And I get that, but you're also collecting a much smaller benefit. Great question. Okay, Sharon, I was an insurance agent, but left the business 2 years ago. My only income is my renewals from the past. It's that earned income which is taxable. Yeah, so any income that adds any income is going to make your Social Security taxable, including renewals from insurance companies. That's probably paid to you on a 1099 basis, and it absolutely is going to count, and it is absolutely going to do that. You should definitely have a plan. Great question, Sharon. All right, Dwight. When I turn 62, I have 3 kids under the age of 18 for 4 more years. Is it better to draw Social Security benefits then? Not necessarily. The kids under 18 are going to qualify for additional benefits in addition to your benefit. So you can get up to 50% more than your benefit. If your benefit is $3,000 a month, you get an additional $1,500 a month while those kids are under 18 going to school. So not necessarily. Waiting may not make the most sense. Okay, next question. Oh, that might be the end. Do we get recordings of this evening? No, you don't. But you can, if you want, Jody, you can re-listen to it. We're going to take this down usually within 24 hours because we have them going, and it gets very confusing if one's up and we're doing another one. Sometimes we're doing them on things that aren't Social Security, so it's impossible to keep them all up. But you can rewind and listen to it right now, or use the link and go to it within 24 hours. It'll still be there. Okay, this looks like the last question. Lisa, my internet glitched and I heard you read the question, but did not hear the answer about changing my mind about taking Social Security at FRA. Yeah. If you change your mind, you can simply stop the benefit. And then at that point, you have a choice. You can pay back the benefit if it's less than a year and it's like you never filed, or you can simply stop and then it starts accumulating from where you're at going forward all the way to full retirement age, and then all the way the DRC's delayed retirement credits all the way to 70, and you'll get more, definitely more. But you won't make up for that if you had it for 6 months or a year. You won't make up for that unless you pay it back. And if it's more than a year, they won't let you pay it back. Then you can just stop it, and then it starts accumulating after that. Thanks for the question again. Okay, we've come to the end, and it's almost the top of the hour. So let me thank you first off for hanging with me. Boy, we have tons of people still on. Thank you. I'm going to wish you all a good night. Thank you. I see Lisa. Thank you. I appreciate all your kind comments on here. Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a wonderful evening. May your planning be good and wise and well thought out. And may you all have wonderful, wonderful, wonderful retirements. We'll see you all soon. Good night.